Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Let's get started. All right, guys, so we are starting here with this little side table. You know I love doing furniture flips, and I love doing them in this size because they do sell pretty quickly. Not only is this in great shape, but it has a lot of storage. This second drawer is a deep storage that can store many items, and it's actually perfect for a small space. So we are going to start by taking off the hardware as we normally do and giving it a good scrub. It wasn't in horrible shape, but it did have some gooey stuff and dusty stuff on it. I attempted to remove the drawer, but it was quite stuck. So then I said to myself, all right, let me just try to paint it with it on. And let me tell you, it's hard doing this. I have done this more than once, and it's very difficult. However, this is how I started. I'm going to give it 2.5 coats of Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the linen white. 2 coats actually covered most of it. In some areas, you just needed a few extra little touch-ups. That's why I say 2.5. The first coat is always very sloppy looking, a lot of brush strokes, but that's a pretty norm for chalk paint as well as any other paint, really. So once I start applying here, oh, see, my husband helped me remove the top drawer. That made things a lot easier. All right, so moving on. So this is the second coat. And again, I just gave it a half a coat, just slightly here and there as needed. In today's video, not only am I going to show you how to easily transform some amazingly beautiful thrift store items, but we're also going to show you how they can be so customizable to a small space. So what I'm doing here is I'm measuring the top because the top had some water damage. It's hard to see on the camera, on the video, but it did have several bubbles. So we are going to plank the top. This is a 1x6 that I had on hand, and I am going to cut it to the length of the table, or the width, I should say. And I'm going to need 3 of them. It's going to overlap a little bit over the edge, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to lightly sand here with a sanding block from the Dollar Tree. That's to remove any splinters that it may have. And then I'm going to stain it using the Golden Oak Tone Stain by Varathane. And I am just applying it and then removing the excess. And I'm only doing 1 coat. Once the paint was fully dry, it's time to distress. Now, I know that distressed furniture is not for everyone, and it's okay. I just like the way it looks. I like how it allows the details to kind of pop. So that's why I'm doing this one like this. However, you can certainly leave it just as is. So I am using my orbital sander, but you can certainly use a palm sander, or even a sanding block would be perfect for this. Using a palm sander just makes things a lot quicker, and I actually like the look of it. It kind of goes stronger in some areas, lighter in some, and just kind of looks a little bit more natural. So I have done this with my orbital sander now for a couple of years now, actually more than a couple years, and I really like the look. So I'm just focusing on the edges and the details of the drawer, and that's it. I dusted it very well. So now it's time to attach the planks to the top. I'm just gonna liberally add some wood glue and then start adding the planks. I'm making sure they're nicely even on each side, and then I'm going to secure them using some brad nails. I am now going to seal everything using Varathane polyurethane in the crystal clear, and I am applying it with a sponge applicator. This is actually half of a sponge applicator. I cut them in half because one, I feel like it's just way too big, like a whole one. I do have these on my Amazon store if you want to check them out. I do have it in the link or in the description box. So once I apply it, I am going to seal it 2 times in the body of the side table, and then on the top, I'm going to apply 4 coats. I'm going to place the hardware that came with it. I just like the way it looked. The black just stood out to me. And they were in good shape, so I just kept it. But I'm going to remind you what the little side table looked like before. And this is what it looks like now. I love it. I love this little table. I have it up for sale now, and I know it's going to sell pretty quickly. I'm excited to see it go to a home that is going to showcase it. Look at that top. It's just beautiful. I love it. Guys, this little table here was part of this little bundle of furniture that I purchased from a friend actually. They just kind of threw some little tables in, and this one was one of them, and I just thought I give it a new look. And because we're in fall and I absolutely love fall, I thought I would include it in this video. I'm going to give it a very quick but very, very cute makeover. It was in pretty good shape. It did not need any fixing. It was very sturdy and actually very clean, but I still like to give all my furniture a good cleaning. I'm going to use paint here by Dixie Belle. I'm going to have all the details on everything that I used today down in the description box. And the lighting is not too good at this point of the day. Like the sun was hitting right through and it was just very bright. So the color does not give it justice. It looks kind of bright, but it's a beautiful green. There's more of a look of what it really looks like. I gave it 2 coats, but as you can see, this chalk paint is phenomenal. Dixie Belle sent me this paint along with a few other ones, and it's just beautiful, very velvety, great coverage, and the colors are just so yummy. So again, just 1 coat, but this one is the first coat, but I do give 2 coats.
You say take me on a treasure hunt. I long for something new. Have you heard the fairies when they sing and dance?
And once the paint was dry, I am now sealing everything using Varathane polyurethane in the crystal clear. And I'm going to give the top 3 coats and the rest of the table 2 coats. I'm also using my sponge applicator. Again, all of these products are in my Amazon store. And the sponge applicator just makes it so much easier to apply. It applies thin coats very evenly, and it's just easy. You're just wiping it on. So if something like this interests you, again, I have everything in my Amazon store. And we are just about done with this one. Look how cute this table turned out. Love it. Perfect for fall. It would even look perfect for every season, really. I mean, Christmas, summer, spring. What a beautiful table. For this next project, we're going to take this beautiful French style desk that I found at Facebook Marketplace. Believe it or not, it was only $25. Craziness. It was actually quite a drive for me. It was about, not quite. It was maybe about 45-minute drive, but I don't regret it. It was a beautiful find. So we're going to give it a fresh new look. It was already very beautiful. It just needed a little update. So I'm going to take everything off, including the hardware as well as the top of the seat. We are going to be upholstering it, and so we got to do that first. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we clean it off and get it ready for some paint. The paint that I am using is by Jolie Paint, and it's a gesso color. It's called a gesso white, and it's beautiful. It's smooth. It has great coverage, and what can I say? I mean, it's just beautiful paint. So I'm going to give everything 2 coats. You can really see how much of a difference between the original color and the fresh new tone. This is not a crisp white. This is more like a vintage white. Reminds me of melted ice cream, melted vanilla ice cream. There you go. And I just think it just made this desk so much more beautiful than what it already was. And yeah, I just gave it 2 coats and then let it fully dry. I did the same thing with the chair, and I'm not a fan of painting chairs, but what can I say? It was part of the desk. So I did give it also 2 coats of the Jolie Gesso White paint. Now it's time to upholster the chair. I didn't do anything major. I didn't even add any additional padding. I'm just going to cover it. So I'm just going to take this piece of fabric that I actually got several months ago, and it lasted me forever. I think I got it at Joann Fabrics when they were still, not Joann Fabrics, it was at Packatans when they were still in town. So I'm just going to do a very simple upholstering job here, just basically folding it, wrapping it, making sure that the edges are smooth, and I'm using my electric stapler to secure it in place. As an added detail, I decided to add these floral stencil to the side of the drawers. You're not going to be able to see it when the drawers are closed, but when they're opened, I think it's just a cute little detail to see the stencil of this flower. And I decided to do it in yellow because it just pops in contrast of the desk, and as well as it goes together with the new fabric used on the seat. And I just thought it would be a cute little touch for it. So basically, we are just about done, except we do need to seal everything. So in this case, I did decide to use a finishing wax by Jolie Paint. I am not much of a waxer, but more of a like top coat, like polyurethane. But I did get it by Jolie Paint, so I thought let's give it a try. And in the end, it turned out fine, but I'm still not a fan. I just love polyurethane as a top coat. And I think waxing is just so much work too. But nonetheless, I'm going to apply it all over the chair, all over the desk, and then wipe it off with a clean rag, and that way it's going to have a smooth finish. So now it's time to put everything back in place. I'm just going to place the top of the seat right back on it. And I'm going to use the same screws that came with it. And then I'm going to place back the hardware on the actual desk. And I think this little table turned out so beautiful. I love, love, love the end result. And what a fresh new look it got. I love it. All right, so for the next DIY, I am going to take this little mini stool that I got at the Goodwill. It was only $3.99, which I thought was a pretty good deal. I'm going to remove the top because we are going to reupholster that part. So first I want to clean it very well. And I noticed as I was cleaning it that a lot of like a yellowish tint was coming off of it. And it's not like the table was actually really dirty, but I was concerned that the white paint was going to get stained or bleed through. So I did decide to, here I'm tightening the legs and I'm using some wood glue to make sure they're very, very sturdy because they were kind of wobbly. So I tightened them, screwed them in really well, but I did add some wood glue on all of them. Anyways, back to the bleed through. So because it was cleaning off some yellowish kind of dirt, I was afraid that I was going to get some bleed through through the white paint. So I decided to seal everything with the polyurethane. Normally you would do this at the end, like when you to seal the paint, but I did that, and that way hopefully it'll seal in any of that original stain that it had. So while that dries, I'm going to start upholstering my top here. So I'm going to take one of these fabric squares that I get at Walmart. They come in little bundles of 5. This one has little dots in the gray, and I thought it'd be really cute to add to the stool. So I'm just going to start by stapling 2 sides, as you can see here. Once I have 2 sides stapled, then I'm going to start adding some pillow stuffing. I usually have a Walmart pillow laying around somewhere in my craft room because I use it all the time and it goes a long way. So this is normally how I upholster, but I'm sure there are many better ways to do it. I am not a professional upholsterer by any means, but it has worked for me in the past, so I'm just going to keep doing it this way. So once I have the stuffing in there, I'm then going to adjust, or not adjust, but tighten and staple the other side, one of the sides. And then once I had that stapled, then I'm going to keep the one side open to kind of adjust the stuffing as needed so it's not lumpy on the top. And then I'm going to start stapling that one.
I'm walking down the street on clouds instead of the concrete I'm dancing through. Everything's about to come my way. Nothing can ruin my day, no matter what anyone does or say. I smile at fools. No, I don't care, 'cause I am on my way up, and I won't stop. I won't slow down.
And as you can see, I am going staple crazy here. I stapled this thing like if somebody was going to be sitting on it. And trust me, it's a small stool, so no sitting on it. Anyways, once I had it stapled, I am going to cut off any excess fabric as neatly as I can. But we are going to cover it in a minute here. But let's go back to the stool. So now that the polyurethane is dried, I am going to give everything 2 coats of Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the linen white and then let it dry. All right, so back to the top of the stool here. So this craft paper came from another book of craft paper that I get at Michael's, and I am going to cut off a piece that kind of just covers all the staples underneath. I still want that fabric to be seen, but at least this is going to cover that middle portion that looks old and dingy, and it's also going to cover all that excess or where I cut the fabric and all the staples. So I'm going to hot glue it, and I'm also going to staple it to secure it in place.
On my way up, I won't slow down. Yeah, I am on my way up, I won't slow down. I'm strolling down the street with all of my favorite songs on repeat. I'm dancing through. Everything's about to come my way, and I don't care if you spill coffee.
All right, so I know the angle here is not good, but what I'm doing here is I'm marking where those hinges are, where the little holes are going to go. And then that way I know where to place them when I'm screwing in like I'm doing here. That way the top is going to be nicely even on top. So I'm just going to screw it in. I'm using newer screws that I had here, but not the ones that came with it. These are a little longer, and I think they're going to be a little sturdier. So I'm just going to screw these in, and then I decided to add a little magnet to close it because it had a lot more fabric on it now that I reupholstered it. it kind of stayed a little bit open. And so these little magnet things I get at Amazon. I do believe I have them in my Amazon store. A lot of my supplies I have in my Amazon store. So check it out. It is down in the description box. So I'm going to screw it in, and then how these work is basically it has one that has a magnet, and then the other one has like the metal that will stick to the magnet. And it has these little sticky pads that you can just put on the one part there, and then you're going to stick it to the magnet, and then you're going to pull the little red part of it, and it's going to have another side that is sticky, and then you're going to close whatever it is that you're attaching it to, reopen it, and then now it's going to be sticky glued on there, and then that way you know exactly where to screw it in. It's actually pretty easy, pretty clever. I use them all the time when I flip furniture, when I have like cabinets, or if I'm building cabinet doors for shelves, and it works really, really well. With this one, it still left a little bit of a gap, but at least it wasn't open. So I really glad I used it. This little stool got such a cute makeover. I love, love, love. I'm kind of obsessed with it. My daughter actually kept it because she likes to put things inside of it. But overall, I think it turned out super adorable. And what a fresh way to just give it new life. Love it. For this next DIY, I'm going to take this little side table that I got at the thrift store. It was in pretty bad shape. Everything was in bad shape. Overall, the table was sturdy. It was just the paint job was awful. So we're going to give it a brand new look. So as always, removing all the hardware and giving everything a good scrub, making sure that anything that is grungy or dusty is absolutely cleaned off. I am going to give it one coat of Kills primer. This is in the stain blocking formula, just to make sure that the paint is going to grab onto the table as well as keeping any stains from bleeding through the surface.
I'm walking down the street on clouds instead of the concrete I'm dancing through. Everything's about to come my way. Nothing can ruin my day. No matter what anyone does or say, I smile at fools.
Once the primer was completely dry, I then applied 2 coats of Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the linen white. I am using an angled brush. These angled brushes are really good for when you're doing like little cubbies like this, what this table has. It just allows you to be able to get in the those cubbies nicely, easy, and not have the paintbrush touching and stumbling all around in there. Once the paint was dry, it's time to distress. Because the table already had a very dark underneath tone, like that dark paint that it had, it's really awesome to be able to just distress and see that dark come through. I did use several methods of distressing. I used wet distressing, which is basically a white rag, a wet rag, and you just start rubbing off the paint until you like what you see. Sometimes you got to do it a little bit harder than other, and it is usually very subtle and very smooth looking. Another way that you can also distress is by using sandpaper, just by hand. Basically, it's the same as wet distressing. You just want to just sand down at the edges or anywhere you want to see a distress. Usually I focus more on the edges or anywhere where it would normally distress. And it just adds a little bit of heavier distress than a wet distress, which I normally like more. So usually I do wet distress when there's a lot of texture, a lot of details on a piece. So wet distressing is really good for that. Or if it's metal or anything like that, or plastic for home decor. But for furniture, I usually do this one. I usually do my palm sander because it just goes a lot quicker. It distresses pretty heavily wherever you want it, and that's the style I like. However, I know distressed furniture is not for everyone, so you can always just leave it as is. I just really love the way it looks.
I'm gonna rise up. No, I won't stop. It is my time. 'Cause I know what it's like to be broke. I know what it's like when nothing goes your way. So I'm gonna let myself enjoy the fruit from this lucky day. Yeah, I am on my way up. I won't slow down. Yeah, I am on my way up. won't slow down. I'm strolling down the street with all of
As the paint dried, I noticed that there was a lot of these like little holes, like cracks in where the wood met that you couldn't really see when the paint was dark, but then when it dried up or when it was white and dried up, you could really see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it in using some of this caulk and just basically removing the excess. And this is going to fill in all those little holes because you really will see it because this little cubby here is open to anyone seeing it. So once I added that, I then also added another coat in there of the paint, and that way it looked finished. I'm going to seal everything here using polyurethane in the crystal clear. Then I'm just going to place the hardware that came with the table and get that on there. And then I'm going to recover the inside of the drawer. It wasn't in horrible shape, but it could have had a better look. So I just used some contact paper, measured what I needed, and then placed it inside of it. And I think this little table got a beautiful new look. It actually sold fairly quickly, and the person who got it said it's just perfect for a small space. So I really, really love the transformation that this table got.
repeat. I'm dancing through. Everything's about to come my way, and I don't care if you spill coffee on me or if the sky is gray or blue. No, I don't care, 'cause I am on my way up, and I won't stop, I won't slow down. Steady on my feet, I'm gonna rise up. No, I won't stop, it is my time. 'Cause I know what it's like to be broke, yeah. And I know what it's like when nothing goes your way. So I'm gonna let myself enjoy the fruit from
All right, moving along. So this transformation here is actually one that my daughter kept for herself. I actually got it for my daughter. It's a little vanity slash desk little table that I got off of Marketplace. And I thought it was a pretty cool find because it had the two sides flaps that open for storage as well as the middle portion that opens up for storage. However, it was dated. It had an awful orangey color to it. At least I didn't like it. So we're going to give it a brand new look. Of course, once again, we want to make sure it's nicely clean and ready for some paint. This wasn't horribly dirty. It was actually in pretty good cleanliness shape, I suppose. But it did need a little bit of scrub here and there. So I usually use crud cutter, but you can use anything that would just take the yuckiness away. It doesn't really matter. I've used soapy water. I've used Awesome that you can get at the Dollar Tree. You can use anything you have in hand, but I have found that crud cutter really gets through the crud really, really well. It also had this big gash on the back. This is where the middle portion of the table, where the top hinged to, and it must have just gotten really tugged on or something, but it really tore this up. So I filled it up with some wood filler as well as the holes that were in front. It had like a faux drawer kind of look, and I didn't want that look. So I did fill it in and sanded it down until I liked what I saw. So now I'm going to pre-drill some holes and give this table new hinges. That way it's going to be nicely hinged and secured to the table, and it can be opened easily. It is now time to start painting. I'm actually using regular household latex paint for this one. This is by Behr, and it's their premium line. And this color is amazing. It's called Mossy Bench. I have used it over and over again, and it's beautiful. And not only is it beautiful, but it actually has really good coverage. For latex paint, let me tell you, this is one of the best ones I've ever used. So there you have it. Behr Premium, and this is in the Mossy Bench. So really, really cool. I am using another angled brush that I have. Again, it's just easier to kind of get into little small spaces. But I'm going to give everything 2 coats and let it fully dry. Now it's time to put the back on it, and this was kind of challenging because I wanted to make sure it was going to be nicely safe and it's not going to come off because I had to add so much wood filler. I was a little concerned, but it actually turned out pretty well, and it's still in her room and she still uses that every day, so I'm happy with how it turned out. But I ended up having to switch the hinges. I was placing it one way and then I had to switch it up because I realized that, I just wanted to make sure that it was going to be even. As you can see, adding it the other way, the hinge would have been inside and it was lifting the top a little bit. So I did have to switch the way I placed it. So now it's going to be on the outside of the little desk here for her. For the inside of the desk, I decided to paint it white. This is regular household latex paint. That way it looked fresh, it looked clean, and it just brightens it up. So I'm really glad that I did that. And I did resurface the inside of the cubbies with some contact paper as well. I did decide to add the same little stencil that I added on the desk earlier, but this time I did it in white. And I placed it right in the front where that faux drawer kind of look was there. And then I sealed everything using polyurethane in the crystal clear. And then I decided to add some hooks to the side of the desk. That way she has some little tin cans here to add any coloring pencils or anything that she may want to add. Let me remind you what the desk used to look like. And this is what it looks like now. I think the transformation is absolutely awesome. I love it. It's so fresh, so bright, and she still has it in her room. No, it's not as organized as it first was, but it still looks pretty darn good. So I'm really happy with the transformation.
I think I've waited all these years for you right here. But how will I ever know if you go? 'Cause I don't know you, but
All right, so for this DIY, we are going to start with this wooden box. I recently went to a yard sale and I found 3 boxes. One I already redid into a kind of like a coffee table trunk, and this one we are going to turn into a cute little side table. So the first things first is I want to secure it. Make sure that it is sturdy, that all the joints are as sturdy as possible. So I hammer down the already nails that were on there. I'm also going to brat nail a lot through the sides, just making sure that it's nicely secure. And I did use 1/2 inch brad nails on the thinner areas like you see here, and then on the bottom, because it was thicker like you see here, I am using 1 inch brad nails. So just wanted to let you know. Once I had it nicely secure, it's time to just make sure that all dust, cobwebs, and dirt is all gone, or at least as much as possible. This is such a rustic box that it truly is hard to get everything out, but it did actually look pretty clean. So now I'm just measuring the inside of the width of the box because, like I said, we're going to turn it into a little side table, and I am going to place a little shelf inside of it. So this is a 1x10 that I already had on hand. I used in other projects. I always keep like 1x3s, 1x4s, 1x10s, sometimes 1x6 and 1x8s. Not all of them at once, but I just like having them on hand because they're really easy to work with and they're really nice to have for DIYs. So once I had it marked and I cut everything where I needed to cut, I'm going to paint everything white, or at least the shelf and these 4 legs that I got at the hardware store. Let me tell you, it was like 2 years ago. I had a plan to use this for a dresser that I flipped a long time ago. I never used them and I completely forgot. So we're going to use it for this one. I painted them white, they're drying. So now I am going to take this drill bit and I'm just going to mark here. I actually marked where the bottom of the screw is on the legs. And I make sure that I grabbed a drill bit that is thick as or a little thinner, I believe it was, or almost about the same thickness as the screw. And then I marked with a tape how thick or not how thick, but how deep the screw is. And that way I'm not going to drill too much far in. So I did mark in each corner using my square there to make sure that I am drilling evenly in all 4 corners. And here I am going to be drilling, making sure that I don't go past that tape mark that I did there. And then once I had that done, then it was time to start attaching the legs. I used wood glue and then just basically screwed them in until they're nicely tight.
You say take me on a treasure hunt. I long for something new. Have you heard the fairies when they sing and dance? Oh, I wish it was me every night. When I close my eyes, I see beauty lives in me. I know I don't yet know it.
And then I did finish them off by adding these felt pads that I usually use for my furniture. That way it's not going to scratch any floors. So now that the shelf is dry as well, I'm just going to add some wood glue, and then I'm just going to start hammering it into the center where I marked earlier. And I love it. I mean, what can I say? I truly did. The cut was perfect. And anytime you have to hammer just a little bit to get it in there, you know it was a good cut because it was not swiveling on me. It was truly, truly in there. So now I'm just using my level here, making sure that the shelf is level, not only sideways, but also vertically. And that way, anything they put on it, it's going to be nicely safe. And I'm just going to brad nail from the sides. I did add quite a bit on each side just to ensure that everything is nicely secure. And then to finish it off, I am going to seal the top of the box. This is going to be like the top of the table. I contemplated putting something on top, but I didn't want to miss out on all this beautiful texture and all this beautiful like rustic look. So I just left it as is, and I did seal it three coats with the polyurethane. And look how beautiful this little side table is. Love it. I love it, love it, love it. I think it would look great in any space, especially any smaller space, because it is on the smaller side. But how beautiful does it look? All right, so for this next DIY, I am going to take this really old box that I recently got at a yard sale for $3. Yes, you heard me right. $3. And yes, it's old. And yes, it was stinky. And yes, it was dirty. However, it was such a good quality. It has so much character, so much natural patina. You could tell this thing has been around for a long time. I cleaned it up as best as I could. I flipped it over, and now I'm going to add these wheel casters that I have had forever and ever. Truly, I got them on Amazon so long ago. I'm going to try to see if I have them in my Amazon store, but if I don't, I'll try to add them. But you can get these really inexpensive. So I'm just going to add 4 of them, 1 in each corner, just screwing them in. I got really lucky that the box actually had really thick trim at the bottom. So that's it on that box. I'm not going to do anything to the box because I wanted to keep it in its original state. I want it to be very rugged. So now I'm going to take one more of those boards that you heard me talk about earlier from the scrap wood area at the hardware store. This one I did have to cut to size. However, it was already the same width, and believe it or not, it was exactly the same width as the box. I gave it 2 coats of Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the country gray tone. Once that was dry, I placed it on top of the box, and now I'm just going to screw in some of these hinges that I already had on hand from other furniture that I flipped and I kept. And basically it's just screwing them in from the back, making sure that it opens on the right direction. I'm going to take this wooden knob that, again, I kept from a piece of furniture that I flipped a while ago. It was already the tone that it is, and I'm just going to place it right in the front. That way it can be used to open and close the top of the box. once I have it on there with a screw, I am going to seal in the top of the box, because this is going to be not just a storage box, but it could also serve as a little side table or as a coffee table. And if you place something that is wet or has ice or something spills, then you are able to wipe it off if it's sealed. Does that make sense? So then I decided to add a little something to the front of the box, because even though the box itself is really rustic and has a lot of character, I just felt like I needed something. So I used my Cricut and I cut out a very rustic kind of, oh my gosh, American flag. There you go. And I just stenciled it with Rust-Oleum chalk pen in the charcoal tone. And look how cool this box is. It's very manly, almost very rugged, rustic, and I just love the way it turned out. I love this box. I just can't tell you how much I love the box. It's just the natural state that it was in. Yes, it was dirty and stinky and we had to clean it up, but overall, I just love it. Very cool. For this next DIY, I'm going to take this little cabinet that I purchased at Habitat for Humanity not long ago, and I thought it was so beautiful. It's solid wood, and it just has a very farmhouse look to it. It just screamed farmhouse to me. So the back part of it was actually, it had actually come apart. It fell off. So we're going to have to put that back on. And I'll do that using my brad nailer and then giving it a good scrub so we can start painting. The door was actually opening and closing very easily, so I decided to add one of these little door magnets. It's just for little cabinets or doors where you can put one on one side and then the other one on the door, and that way it'll hold it together and not open and close all the time like it was. As I mentioned earlier, I just want to give it a good scrub, but it was actually in really good shape. It was not dirty at all, but I still like to clean it and make sure that any grime that is on it will be removed. I'm going to use Debbie's Design Diary chalk paint. This is a clay and chalk based paint. It's in the color Apothecary. It is beautiful. It's been over a year since I've used it, and I just fell in love all over again with it. I have like a 1/4 or 1/3 of the can left, but it was actually enough for this cabinet, and I still have left over. So I'm going to give it 2 coats over the entire cabinet. Once the 2 coats were dry, I am now going to distress it pretty heavily using my electric sander once again and the 150 grit sandpaper. I'm going to focus mainly on the edges, but I will do a little bit here and there in the center parts because I want it to have a really, really heavy distress. And we are almost done, but it's time to seal everything. And once again, I am going to use the Varathane, polyurethane, and the crystal clear. And I'm going to wipe it using a sponge applicator, which I love using. So easy to use. And guys, I do have a lot of these supplies, paints in my Amazon store. I am going to link the clay and chalk paint here from Debbie's Design Diary and the Dixie Belle website as well on the description box. So check it out. But once again, a lot of the supplies that I have here, I do have in my Amazon store. So check it out. It is linked down in the description box. And then once I wiped on I did two coats of the top coat and then 3 on the top. I did put back the little handle that was on it originally. It was black. I thought it was simple enough to keep it on. So I did that, and I think this little cabinet turned out so beautiful. I might even keep this one instead of selling it. I just don't know if I have a place for it, but I do want to remind you what it looked like before we gave it a new look. And this is what it looks like now. Stunning little cabinet, beautiful color, and I just think it would look great in any home decor. Side table. It is very sturdy. I love how sturdy it is, and I'm going to give it a brand new look. So I'm going to put them on these little rolling cards that I have. It just makes life easier when you are painting furniture. And I'm just going to place them here. And then the goal with this table is to paint it. And for the first time ever, guys, I am using regular latex paint. What? Yes, I am going to use regular household paint. You know that I love chalk paint. Chalk paint is my go-to paint for anything DIY, anything home decor. However, I want to give this a try. I know a lot of you have asked before, why chalk paint, why not regular household paint? So we're going to give it a try. I went to the hardware store and I got a Behr brand paint in a beautiful green tone. But first we got to prep it. So I did sand down the top just a little bit because it had some kind of like water stains and it was a little bit lifted. And then I removed the knobs that it had, and then I am going to give it 1 coat of Kills primer, and this is the stain blocking primer. This is just to make sure that latex paint is really going to stick to the side table. This side table had a weird light switch in the back of it. Not sure where it was connected, but we are going to remove that because it makes no sense to be in there. Alright friends, so here we are. This is the inside of the little cabinet, and there's a little bit of damage here. I'm not really concerned because I am going to resurface this little area, or maybe even paint it, just the bottom. But then we have that. That's where that weird light like switch was at. I have no clue because it wasn't connected to anything inside. I thought maybe for a reason it would have had like maybe some lighting in here, but there wasn't, so I'm not sure about that. But nonetheless, I am going to have to figure. So we are going to start painting here. I am going to give this first coat, just kind of giving it a smooth coat. However, first impression of the paint is I did not like it. I didn't like the brightness of the color. I did not like how runny the paint is. It's because I'm used to having a chalk paint, and chalk paint, it's thicker, it's creamier, and it has better coverage. So I guess I'm just used to chalk paint. So nonetheless, I am committed. At this point, I'm just thinking, okay, let's just keep going. Let's just see where this goes. But the first coat is always the roughest, even with chalk paints. Don't get me wrong, but it's just a little bit more rough with this latex paint. And as you can see here, it is just so just striped and a lot of brush strokes. And but nonetheless, we are going to keep painting until it is fully covered. All right, friends, so here we are. This is after 3 coats of the Behr paint. And I need to do another one. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but yeah, you can see it right here. You can really see that it needs another one. So not loving the latex paint on it. However, the color is stunning. I really love the color. So let's keep going. Alright guys, so I am out here in the garage and I am going to be spray painting these hardware. Now these knobs were actually the original ones that came with the side table, but these I actually recently got on Amazon. They're on the smaller side. For this DIY, for this side table is perfect. So, but I actually got them for when I create home decor because it's small enough, but it's actually going to work out. So I'm just going to place it here on this box. I removed the screw. Now I can stand them up and spray paint them there. So I'm going to use Rust-Oleum Metallic Golden Tone and see how they look. So on to covering the bottom portion of the inside of the cabinet here. So this contact paper I get at Dollar Tree. You've probably seen them. I actually have used it several times and it's done very well for me. So I'm just going to start placing it. It's kind of uncomfortable to do this. If you've ever lined drawers or anything like this, shelves, it's pretty uncomfortable. So let alone having to film it as well. So I'm trying to give you a little bit of room there so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm basically just going to start at the back and work my way to the front. I am using the Cricut little scraper here just to help me with bubbles. Now this cabinet, the bottom of it had a little lip right there. You see where I'm marking? That's where I'm going to cut, because if I line the front of that lip, when the doors close and open, it's probably going to pull back and forth the contact paper, and I don't want that. I want it to look seamless. I want it to look professional and complete. So I'm just going to do that, and then with my X-Acto knife, just make a cut and then pull it, and that way it'll be a nice clean cut. Oh guys, I am not sure what I want to do with this end part here. So I contemplated covering the whole thing from the back, like removing the whole thing. However, this is such a hard quality piece of wood back here, even though it's thin, that I would hate to remove the whole thing. So then I thought, okay, well maybe I'll put some contact paper like this, and then I was like, no, because then you're gonna feel it, you know, it's gonna be like wobbly there, so that's not gonna be nice and good quality. So what I decided to do then is I am going to cover from the front, because the back you won't see, it's gonna be towards, you know, towards the wall, but if you open the doors, then you'll be able to see it no matter if it's covered on the back. So what I'm gonna do is I am going to cut a piece of wood this size in here, and I'm going to place it right on top, right, you know, on there, and I'm going to paint it the green color, and that way it'll complement it. So let's see. I am using this piece of paneling that I got at the hardware store. This is one of my scrap wood pieces from the hardware store. If you follow me on Instagram, I recently went and got more of these scrap wood. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, I ask that you consider doing so. I do have it linked down below. So I'm going to use my table saw there to cut it to size after I measured it, and I'm just going to sand it here lightly to remove any splinters, actually to remove all the splinters. It was filled with splinters. And then I'm going to give it 2 coats of the bare green paint. I'm going to have the paint linked down below if it interests you, or the color at least, the name of the color. All right guys, so here we go, moment of truth. God, I'm so nervous. All right, so it looks like it's fitting, and oh my gosh, is it gonna fit? Well, I think it's a little snug, but that's not a bad thing, because I can always use my mallet to kind of push it in there, and I think it's gonna work. We'll see. Guys, I am seriously in shock. It fits perfect. This never happens like this. Like, this is truly one of those moments where I am so thankful, because it fits snug enough where I don't even need to nail it at all with my brad nailer. I just hammered it, or mallet it, I guess, and then I still have to mallet it just a little bit. But overall, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. And look how much better that looks, you know, without that hole, and it matches the paint. Yes. And to finish things off, I'm just going to add the knobs and the handles, and then we'll be done. These are silver now, so I have to paint them, and I really don't want to take them out, like take them out and take them outside and spray paint them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the spray paint that I use. I'm going to spray just a whole bunch, like right here on this piece of paper, and then using a brush, I am going to dab and paint and see how that comes out. Alright guys, so I did have to add 2 coats of this brushed on spray paint, but it worked out perfectly. You can't even tell that I didn't spray paint them. So here's what the little cabinet or side table looked like before I gave it a new look. And this is what it looks like now. Ah, so beautiful. I love this green tone. Although I had to do 4 coats and I was not happy about that, the end result is stunning. Don't tell me this doesn't look like high-end. Oh, goodness, does it look high-end. Love, love, love it. And ladies and gentlemen, it was only $13. How cool is that? This side table that I recently got at the thrift store. It was only $19.99 and I love it. It's very heavy duty. The bottom is kind of like an iron, so it's very actually heavy to lift up. I started by removing the legs, just unscrewing them, and as well as the top, because we are going to give everything a refresh, but we are going to leave the iron portion just as is. So we started by giving everything a good scrub. Although it was pretty clean, you want to remove any dust or any grunge that may be on it. After it was nicely clean, I gave everything 2.5 coats of Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the linen white. To paint the legs, I decided to fold into 4 parts a piece of foam core. That way I can actually stick them right in and paint them a little bit easier, because they are round and they would have just rolled around. It was still a little challenging, but it was definitely easier if I would have just tried to do it without the foam core. But if you have a technique or a trick to paint things like these, let me know in the comments. I love to hear new ways that can make things easier for me. But while that was drying, it was time to give the iron base portion a little bit of a clean. It looked like at some point something splattered or splashed on it, and it was kind of sticky, so I just kind of gave everything a good clean with water and crud cutter, and make sure that it was nicely clean for resale, because I will be reselling this little table. Once everything was clean, it was time to place the legs back on. So I placed that bottom portion and screwed in each leg into its place. And then I decided to add those little felt pads that protect the floors from any scratches. I get these at the Dollar Tree. I just place one of the smaller ones right on each leg. For the top, I decided to distress the edges. Just the edges though, nothing major, just to give a little bit of definition and a little bit more of a farmhouse look. And then once I had it standing where I wanted it, I sealed everything using polyurethane and the crystal clear using my sponge applicator. This sponge applicator I do have on my Amazon store. I love it. This is actually half of a sponge. I like splitting them in half. And if you are interested in taking a look at that sponge as well as other of my Amazon favorites, I do have that linked down below. Now I'm just going to replace the top right on top and screwing in the screws that came with it. And this is what the little table looks like. I love, love, love the way this turned out. This is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you're visiting for the first time, I hope you consider joining our YouTube family. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. I'm going to have a playlist here with tons more furniture inspiration for you. Check it out. I'll see you later and have a blessed day. Bye.
I can't concentrate.